Fantasy basketball managers, it is playoff time. So you know we want to provide as much value as possible, but I do not have enough hours in the day. So what do? I make sure I optimize my time. You see where we at. I'm in the car, man. I'm literally on my way home from work, and I'm trying to jump on a quick video to provide you some value. Now, I don't have any data or numbers in front of me right now, so I'm gonna be freestyling off the dome. Excuse me, I had to pick something up off the floor that was rolling around. If you're listening to this, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you are watching it, thank you for watching the YouTube channel or even on TikTok, because we'll likely share this on TikTok as well. So let's get into it. So today I want to really talk about the importance of being cutthroat. The importance of being cutthroat in the fantasy playoffs. I get these questions all the time, especially from new fantasy basketball players. They ask me, Robin, should I drop Dan Gafford? Robin, should I drop Derek Lively? Robin, should I drop Tim Hardaway Jr.? Listen, unless these are guys who are at the top of your roster, meaning guys you got in the first round, guys you got in the second round, third round, fourth round, maybe guys who are performing on a fourth round level, third round level. Jalen Johnson, I would hold Jalen Johnson, right? But if you have players who are slumping, players who are like kind of fringy, maybe they not the kind of players that are on everybody's roster, man, listen. You got to get that shish kebab out of your head that you need to hold on to these players after the daggone season is over. Like, what are you saving them for? They're not action figures, guys. Your fantasy basketball team, as you know, as interested as you are in looking at them, like looking at your team, you know, oh my God, look, I got Luka and I ended up grabbing Wemby. How did I pull that off? Let me look at them. I do it too. I made a joke earlier on in the season with my man Adam King from Fantasy Basketball International that when we draft a team, we're like looking at the team like it's a newborn baby. We're looking at it like, oh, like, look at this new baby we got. You know, I got kids. I know when my babies come home from the hospital, I'm like, oh my God, they're so cute. And that's what we do with our fantasy basketball team. And just like our children grow up and they move on and go out of the house, is the same freaking way that your fantasy basketball team at the end of the season is going to leave you. If you are in a redraft league, which most of our community are, you know, they're redraft players. If you play in a redraft league, you're not going to see those players next year unless you draft them again. So you're going to have to make the moves to get them back on your team. My man says it, Bill the Professor, one of my league mates and one of my dear friends. He's been a guest of the show in the past. He says when it comes to the waiver wire, love them and leave them. Like Colin Sexton is a great example. Colin Sexton has been cooking. People have been like, yo, Colin Sexton is back. Yeah, he gonna be back on the waiver wire. I'm not playing, yo. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying drop Colin Sexton just because, you know, because his name is too sexy. It's not a ridiculous reason like that. I'm saying if, in fact, you are in a close matchup, in the playoffs especially, and you're down and you need to fill roster slots, then you have to get merciless with this. You got to be like you can't have any emotional attachment or connection to these freaking players when it comes to fantasy. Top of your roster, yes. SGA, a healthy SGA, come on, man. We're not streaming that spot. Now, I would say, just as, like, since we're talking about it, right? You might have a player like Trae Young, who currently, right now, at the time of recording this episode, doesn't really look like he's going to be available to play any meaningful fantasy basketball. Julius Randle. I think definitely Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes is going to be out for at least 4 weeks. Joel Embiid. I don't know how significant Jalen Brunson's injury is. I know he had a knee injury recently. But the point is, if you have a star, a top tier, top of the roster, top heavy type player on your squad, and he's out, and the timeline for him to return is after your playoffs or close to the end, that's the decision you have to make, is to cut him. Not saying just do it for fun. If you have an IR spot, then put him in the IR spot. You never know. Maybe Embiid comes back the last 3 games of your fantasy basketball season and gives you some value. No problem. But if you don't have an IR spot, you have other players that will be available that you want to slide into that IR spot, and you got somebody like Desmond Bane in there where we don't know what is going to happen. You got to make a tough decision, my guy. Stop playing with your freaking food. For real. Y'all listen, we had like 44 people in our community win fantasy basketball championships. And they won because they were cutthroat and they were ruthless. Many of them were in startup leagues with not so experienced players. And they took advantage of that. Every year that you play, your league mates are going to get better. Your job is to get even better. And how you do that is you maximize roster spots using streaming techniques and streaming methods and strategies. That's it, man. If you don't know what streaming is when you take the bottom 1 or 2 players on your roster and you drop them to put new players in, so you always are filling those roster slots up with players who are active and getting you points. And the key this week, for week 19, and for the rest of the season even, right, is to make sure that you're really paying attention to when we have back-to-backs. So for week 19, for example, all of the nights in the NBA are what we call low volume nights, meaning they don't have 10 games or more. If you have 10 games or more, it's very difficult to stream because you know how it is. Sometimes you go to set your lineups and you have 4 or 5 guys who are still on the bench, 3 or 4 guys who are still on the bench. You're like, who do I pick? And then you're put into start-sit decisions. This week, as well as week 20, as well as week 21, are all streamable days. It is actually a freaking like a candy shop for fantasy basketball managers who are about their freaking business. You got to stand on business at this time of the year. You got to be relentless. You got to be merciless, hungry. You got to act like a pit bull terrier that's been locked up in a cage for a week with no food. That's how you win your championship. So the biggest takeaways from today's episode, guys, make sure that you're paying attention in week 19 specifically, week 19, 20, and 21. Pay attention to the back-to-backs. So if you grab a player on Monday and he plays on Tuesday as well, you can maybe drop him after the Tuesday if it works well. Another thing to pay attention to is players. Another big takeaway is making sure that you don't get attached to these players, right? I don't want you guys out there like, oh my God, I really love Colin Sexton. He's awesome. And as you get further into the playoffs, like the finals, like I would drop anybody in the finals. Like what? If Giannis is not playing on Sunday, I'm down by 50 points, and I need that roster slot, I'm okay with dropping Giannis on the Sunday if it's the last game of my season. Now, if I'm not in the finals, I wouldn't do that. But it's just to help you to understand how you need to approach this with a sense of urgency and approach it like there's no tomorrow. If you take it serious like that, and I know for some of you guys who are not up on fantasy, it's your first season, you're like, what's wrong with him? Like, Robin is actually insane. Yes, I am obsessed. I am maniacal. I am maniacally obsessed when it comes to winning fantasy championships. And more importantly, I'm obsessed with you winning championships. I care more now about my community winning championships than I feel about myself winning championships. It's just a fact. And it's happened over the last 2 years, really. The first year really wasn't like that. The second year, I got the bug when people started telling me like, hey, I won. Like, thank you. I was like, wow, like I'm serving people, winning people money, winning people bragging rights, and people are having fun winning championships. I know how it feels to win championships. I got probably like 15, 18, I don't know how many championships I've won over the years. Like, I stopped counting, right? I typically win at least one a year. I've had some tough years, but for the most part, I win at least one a year. And I want you to feel the same thing. If you've never won a fantasy basketball championship, I'm here to let you know that this is your freaking year. And I'll do whatever it takes to help you get there. Do me a big favor. If you have questions about fantasy basketball, make sure you join our Discord community. You can do that at BelieveInFantasy.com. Also, if you want to jump on a call with me, if you want to jump on a video call with me, we can do that on the Didit app. That's DIDIT. And if you want to, we can do a free 12-minute call. If you want to have a longer call than that, they have fees that apply, but I'll do your first call up to 12 minutes absolutely free. It costs you nothing. You can do a screen share with me where you can show me your team, right? You can show me your league, right? You can be like, hey, Robin, can we build some trade packages so I can get so-and-so if your trade deadline didn't pass? Also, if you need help with creating a streaming plan for the week, I'll go through with you like, hey, on Tuesday, you need to drop this guy. On Tuesday, you need to pick up these 3 guys in this order of priority if they're available. Like, that's how you win championships. Like, listen, it's not as hard as people make it out to be. It's actually quite simple, but you got to be hungry, you got to be committed, and you got to have the drive and the will to win. If you have that, and you got me on your side and our community on your side, I guarantee you will win multiple championships this year, hopefully, but also in the foreseeable future. If you guys have questions on the YouTube page, please drop your comments. I will respond to every single comment for the rest of the season. I'm responding to every single comment. Scout's honor. If, in fact, you have multiple questions, do not leave them on the same thread. Drop your comment. Let me answer. If you have a follow-up question to that question or you have another question, please start another thread. It's just way easier for me to keep up with everything. And again, I want to provide you with as much value as humanly possible. With that being said, don't forget, play the waivers, set your lineups, and believe in fantasy, you freaking nerd. Well, I haven't said the freaking nerd part in a while, but peace. Cruising.